Before we get started, I wanted to say, if you are watching this, from home or whatever it might be, and you are in the greater Anchorage area, and you can, come and join us on Wednesday evening around 5:15 or so. We have a great dinner. You missed out on 2 very good soup tonight and some fantastic desserts and homemade rolls you could have been here for. We do this every Wednesday, give or take, and you are welcome to join us even if you don't normally attend this church. Now, if you are in another state, or I think we even have 1 or 2 in another country, you can join us too. Just let me know when to pick you up at the airport. Let's pray and we'll get started. Thank you, Lord, for meeting with us tonight. How we want to hear from you, to know you. I pray that tonight as we look at this story, you would teach us what we need to know so that we can follow you more closely. Amen. It occurred to me as I was looking at this today, how much greater of a story this could be if Jacob and Esau had been more concerned about the plan of God than they were about their own little private kingdoms. Can you imagine if Jacob and Esau had grown up in a way that as they heard the promises of God for their family, that they were both so excited about what God was going to do in their family that they focused on that instead of trying to satisfy themselves. In John 17, Jesus prays for the church. He prays for the believers. And in the second half of John 17, he prays specifically for the believers that are to come. He prays for the disciples that he has now, and then he prays for those who will become a disciple because of their witness. And he's talking about us. And just think for a minute. If you're Jesus, you got a hotline to the Father. You can ask him anything you want for the church. What would you ask for? Financial security for decades to come? Beautiful buildings. Really effective outreach programs. He prays for unity. That's his whole thing. He prays that the church would be united. And as I look at these 2 guys, Jacob and Esau, can you imagine the story? Oh, you say, but only Jacob or Esau could become the nation. Really? Really? Don't you think that God could have done something great with these 2 guys? Look, Jacob, his family was highly dysfunctional, but at least they were somewhat focused on the promise, and God used 12 sons. What could he have done with these 2? But instead, they were so committed to their own thing, to their own mind, their own desires, that they missed out on whatever God could have done. I was thinking about that when I was reading in Philippians. I think I read in Philippians this chapter today. It might have been yesterday. Philippians 2. Paul says, "Now I hope in the Lord Jesus to send Timothy to you, so that I too may be encouraged by news about you." Listen to this. "For I have no one else like-minded who will genuinely care about your interests. All seek their own interests, not those of Christ." Paul says about Timothy. He's coming to you. You can trust him. He'll help you. He'll be an encouragement to you. And I know you'll be an encouragement to me because Timothy cares about Christ. He cares about furthering the work of Christ, not about taking care of himself. Paul says, I have no one else like him. Think of the ministry team Paul had around him. He says, I got one guy that I can count on to be focused about Christ. And so I can trust my favorite church with Timothy. I was just thinking about these guys today. What would it have been like? What kind of a story would we be telling if instead of all this competition and conniving and brutality between the 2, instead it was a story of how the 2 sons of Isaac, Jacob and Esau, were as committed as Abraham and as committed as Isaac to the plan and purpose and promise of God for the family. That would have been a cool story. The strengths of these 2 working together, that's what selfishness does. And unfortunately, we're going to see a little bit more of that tonight. Now, we talked last time in Genesis 28 about what some people would refer to as Jacob's conversion or Jacob's salvation, where Jacob takes a nap, and as he's sleeping, he sees a stairway that goes to heaven. There's angels going up and then down on it, and God comes and speaks to him. And I can definitely see here how Jacob kind of steps into the realm of Yahweh God at this point. But I personally can't call this Jacob's conversion. Maybe Jacob's salvation, but certainly not Jacob's conversion. Oh, I can see how some things in his life begin to change at this point, but I don't think that Jacob is genuinely converted. I would call Jacob, out of the end of chapter 28, a believer, but not a follower. He's a believer, but he's not a disciple. Now we talked even on Sunday, last Sunday, about a disciple, what a disciple is. How a disciple is someone who models himself or herself after the one that they follow. A disciple of Christ is one who truly carries the name Christian, which means essentially little Christ, or a little copy of Christ. That's what it is. Now, it doesn't mean that they're doing it particularly well, but it does mean that they're growing in this day and day, learning to follow closer, learning to be more like Christ. Someone who has done what Timothy has done and placed their eyes on Christ and taken them off of themselves. No longer primarily concerned about meeting their own needs and desires, but now primarily concerned about meeting the desires of Christ. So no longer is it, Lord, will you bless me? Instead, the prayer is, Lord, how can I bless you? I want to put a smile on your face today, God. I want to be of benefit to you today, a disciple. I don't see that Jacob is a disciple yet. He's a believer. He believes in Yahweh God. He even trusts Yahweh God, at least with the big things. He's going to take care of the little things, but he trusts God at least with the big things. He believes what God has said, that he'll be with him wherever he goes. He believes that God has said he'll bring him back to this land and he'll provide for him on his journey. He believes all of these things. He's a believer, and he even acts on his belief. He is a genuine believer, but he is not a follower. I stress this only because I would have to say that the majority of people in our churches, not you people, but people I know, people in our churches are right there. They are believers. They believe that Christ is God in the flesh. They believe that he came and gave his life on the cross for us and rose again on the third day so that we might have access to the Father. They believe that they are forgiven, and they trust heavily in the grace of Christ and in the atonement of his blood. They are believers. They believe that he has done some great work, that he is doing work in us, and that one day, on the day when we die, we'll wake up in heaven. They're believers. But they're not really followers. They're not really dedicating their life to the process of taking their eyes off of themselves and onto God. They're not surrendered. They're not submitted. It's kind of like this. When you become a believer, it's like you're driving down the road in the car of your life. You're piloting your life, you're driving down the road, and you see Jesus standing on the side of the road. And you have heard that Jesus gives the best directions. And so you pull over and you say, Jesus, I'm lost. I don't know where I'm going. I really need some help here. Will you get in my car with me and tell me where to drive? And so you start driving, and he tells you, okay, half a mile up here, I want you to take a left. Then you take a left, and it works. You're heading in the right direction. And you go down a little further, and he says, listen, quarter mile up here, I want you to take a right. And you take a right, and it works. And life is grand. And you're driving along, and he says, listen, I need you to slow down. There's a four-way stop coming up, and at that four-way stop, you're going to make a left and go through a roundabout. It's going to be really confusing, but I'm right here. I'll help you with it. And you say, that's not right. The place where I want to go is up on the right. And he says, no, I understand. That's where you think you want to go, but trust me on this. Did I steer you wrong the last 2 times? No, you didn't. All right, trust me on this. Go ahead and, I know it's going to be confusing. It doesn't make sense, but trust me, you'll get where we need to go, and you'll like the destination a lot better if you make a left and you say, I think I'll just make a right. And you make a right. Now, he doesn't get mad. He doesn't start hitting you, you stupid idiot. He just pulls his seatbelt a little tighter, and you make a right, and it's a huge mess. Now, a wise person at that point says, Lord, I have made an error. And he says, that's fine. Let's just make a U-turn, go back to the intersection. This time, trust me through the roundabout. That's being a believer. And that's good. But it's not great. You see, a follower eventually gets to the point where he says, I clearly can't drive very well. I clearly continue to make mistakes on a regular basis. Almost rear-ended a guy back there, cut another guy off. I've lost some paint on the right rear quarter. Clearly, I'm not doing this well, and it's causing you and I, Jesus, a tremendous amount of consternation. So I tell you what, Jesus, I'm going to pull over, and let's get out, run around the car, and you get in the driver's seat, and I'll ride. And on that day, you become a follower. When you say, you drive, I'm with you. Not, I'll drive, but I want you with me. No. You drive, I'm with you. That's when you truly submit to him. We don't see Jacob doing that. Jacob is driving. Now, he has God with him. God said, I will be with you. And he's counting on that. He's counting on that. Matter of fact, the very first term in chapter 29, Jacob resumed his journey. Check out the Hebrew. It's really cute. In Hebrew, it more literally says, he lifted up his happy feet, is what it says. He was excited to resume his journey because now he has God with him. But we're going to see here in a moment, he has God in the passenger seat. He's still calling the shots. Fortunately, God is very patient. Now, you say, hey, does it matter? We both get to the same destination, right? Right? We both get to the same destination? Well, here's the deal. At the end of Jacob's life, which we're going to study, we get to chapter 50, next week, week after that. When we get to the end of Jacob's life, what we're going to hear him say is, my pilgrimage has not been as good as the pilgrimage of my fathers. In other words, I am full of regrets. I will die young, which he did. He died much younger than Abraham or Isaac, and full of regrets. Does he die? Yes. Does he rest in the arms of Christ? I believe so. Was it worth the trip? No. That's Jacob. Jacob is resuming his journey. He has woken up. He has woken up from his sleep where he sees the stairway and he sees the angels and Yahweh God comes and visits him personally and hands him the blessing and says, I will be with you and I'll care for you and I'll bring you back to this place and you'll become a mighty nation and the nation will cover and own this land and all nations on earth will be blessed through you. And Jacob wakes up and he says, this could be none other than the house of God. And in great excitement, he moves forward. He moves forward on his journey, and he goes to the eastern country. And verse 2, hold on, sorry about the fuzzy. I'm going to move that so it's not so fuzzy. Verse 2, as he's entering the eastern country, the area where he's been heading. Remember in elementary school, you learned about the Fertile Crescent. He has left the western side of the Fertile Crescent, traveled on it. He has crested that. He has gone down past the Euphrates River. He's over on the eastern side now. And there, as he enters that eastern country, he sees a well. Now understand, this is not like a hole in the ground. I don't know if you've seen pictures or videos or maybe even have been in the presence of one of these wells. They're like a great big cistern. So there is a well in there that fills this cistern. And then during the dry season, there's still water in the cistern. And then when it gets rainy, the rains come and help to fill the cistern so that basically, regardless of the season, it's always full. Now, there's a tremendous amount of work involved in building one of these, and so it's owned by someone, and they control it. This one seems to be owned by a community of shepherds. This is where he's at. Well, he looked, and he saw a well in a field. 3 flocks of shepherds were lying beside it there, because the sheep were watered from this well, but a large stone covered the opening of the well, that is for security. The shepherds would roll the stone from the opening of the well and water the sheep when all the flocks were gathered there. They would return the stone to its place over the well's opening. Understand, it didn't take that long and it wasn't that complicated. But what they would do is they would gather there until they were all together. And it would become a major social time. This would be the one time that all of these shepherds from all the various clans and communities would get together. They waited for everybody to get together. I mean, it was kind of a little bit of an excuse, maybe. Well, we can't, listen, we got to wait for Joe. Joe's not here yet. And also understand that in those days, a young man of any age, well, any man of any age could be a shepherd from seriously 6-7 years on, could take care of his father's sheep, on up to somebody, well, crud, we see Moses shepherding sheep in his 80s. But young women were also shepherds, shepherdesses. Young women from the age, unmarried young women from the ages of about 8 to about 17 would very likely also be shepherdesses. So in my mind, I'm picturing a little bit of youth group going on here. We have a collection of young men, all who would like a bride. They know that they can find them at the well. Boy, did we talk about that before? Seems to me we talked about that before, finding the bride at the well. They know that they can find the bride at the well. So we may as well wait until they get here. And this big stone, don't worry, ladies. We'll take care of the stone for you. I mean, come on, guys. Youth group guys. How many chairs could you carry at once? I'll take care of that stone. So they're all waiting for this situation when Jacob walks up. Jacob asked the men at the well, "My brothers, where are you from?" That's a good greeting. They're clearly all Hebrew. They clearly all speak some sort of Hebraic language. They can understand each other. They are all shepherds. "My brothers, where are you from?" "We're from Haran," they answered. Hey, where's he going? He's going to Haran. "Oh, wow," he says, verse 5. "Do you know Laban, grandson of Nahor?" Jacob asked them. They answered, literally in Hebrew, it's this: "We know." They're like, "Oh yeah, we know that guy." "We know." Little light, check engine light turns on. Verse 6, Jacob's concerned. Well, is he well? This doesn't just mean is he physically okay. This means, is everyone at peace in his household? They answered, yes. Again, there is no, and you guys know enough about this language and its poetry to know that something's going on here. "Yes," they said. But here is his daughter Rachel coming with the sheep." Now, we're going to find out later that Rachel is a hottie, that everybody is after Rachel. That a lot of the reason all these guys are hanging around is because here comes Rachel. We're also going to find out that the only reason that Rachel hasn't been claimed by one of them yet is because she had an older sister that needed to be married off first. So all these guys, every one of them is staking their claim with Rachel. Listen to how Jacob deals with that. "Listen, guys," verse 7, "it's still broad daylight. It's the middle of the day. It's not the time for the animals to be gathered. Water their flock and go out and let them graze." See, what would happen is they would bring all the flocks in basically at lunchtime, water them, send them back out until it was dark, and then gather them all together for security. And he's like, "Guys, come on. You're wasting daylight. Get these sheep out of here. Go." No, really, go. Because he wanted to stake his claim with Rachel too. But they replied, "Well, here's our excuse. We can't until all the flocks have been gathered and the stone is rolled from the well's opening. Then we will water the sheep." Got to show the girls how tough we are. Verse 9. While he was still speaking with them, Rachel came with her father's sheep, for she was a shepherdess. As soon as Jacob saw his uncle Laban's daughter Rachel with the sheep, he went up himself and rolled the stone from the opening and watered his uncle Laban's sheep. What a tough guy, huh? We were just talking about what a wimp he was a couple chapters ago. This guy's beefy. Not only that, he takes the time and puts the effort forth to water Uncle Laban's sheep. Now, hold on. Do you see some parallels here? Do you remember a couple of chapters ago when the unnamed servant came and he came to a well and he prayed to God to provide the right bride for his master's son? And that bride came to the well and she watered all of the camels. Do you see the parallels? But there's one major difference. Can you see what the one major difference is here? The unnamed servant called on God by name. Yahweh God, you understand the mission that I'm on. I am trusting you completely, Yahweh God. You are driving, I am riding, Yahweh God. Will you deliver to me the best possible situation? Jacob does not do that. Keep that in mind as we move forward. Well, he went up, he rolled the stone from the opening, and he watered Uncle Laban's sheep. Then Laban kissed Rachel and wept loudly. Now, pardon me, Jacob. Now, hold on a minute. So Jacob is there at the well with these other guys. They're conversing. They're hanging out. He's getting to know them. He's getting to know the situation. He's trying to figure out why they're so uncommittal about Laban. He's trying to figure all of this out. Just chatting. Here comes Rachel. She's a hottie. He finds out that she is from Laban's household, and of course he's looking specifically for a girl from Laban's household, and she's hot, and she's young, and she's unmarried. Perfect. Guys, get out of here. He waters the sheep. He comes over and he gives her a big kiss. She's got to be thinking, wow, he's attractive, he's Hebrew, he's single, and he gave me a big kiss. And then he breaks down in tears. I mean, she's got to be thinking, was it the Greek yogurt I ate for lunch? What's the matter with this guy? Well, shortly after demonstrating that he is not a wimp, he demonstrates that he is easily overcome by his own emotion. He is not a master of himself. Once he realizes that he has shown up where he needs to be, he has met this girl that he has already decided he wants to marry, he just collapses in emotion. And she says to him in verse 11b in the Troy Revised and Expanded Version, "What is the matter with you?" And so he told her. He told Rachel that he was her father's relative, Rebekah's son, and she ran and told her father. She hurried to tell her father. Notice the parallel there. It's the same thing we saw last time. She hurried and said, here comes a young man that is a relative. Now, she has heard of Rebekah. You know how they told stories in those days. We've talked about that. She has heard the whole story about the unnamed servant. She has heard the whole story about Abraham and Isaac, and about how her aunt Rebekah was taken to Isaac's place, and what a wonderful thing that was. And she has heard about the wealth. She has heard about the wealth. So as Laban, he remembers verse 13. When Laban heard the news about his sister's son Jacob, he ran to meet him, hugged him and kissed him, immediately accepted him. Because he remembers that when Isaac came, there were camels, and there were goods, and there was value. And that's a really good clan to be aligned with. All that money. He wants to be part of all that money. The problem is, Jacob is there more or less alone. We've talked that Jacob probably had a servant or maybe two with him. He probably had some goods that he was carrying, but he certainly wasn't sent away properly like the inheritor of a large estate in that day should be. He might have had some stuff with him, but he didn't seem to be so well off? And there appears to be a little bit of a question here because Jacob answers it. Laban took Jacob to his house, and Jacob told him all that had happened. What had happened? Well, Jacob was the second born. He wasn't supposed to have the birthright, but he kind of swindled his brother out of the birthright. I mean, listen, Esau's a grown man. He made his own decision here, but Jacob knew what he was doing, and so he got the birthright. And then later, well, now listen, it wasn't really Jacob's fault. I mean, his mom set the whole thing up. I mean, really, his mom, made the soup and dressed him. It wasn't really, and there's nothing Jacob could do about it, you see, because he's an obedient son, right? As he's explaining this to Laban, all that happened. You can just hear the conversation. Laban says, so Jacob, why are you here? Oh, I've come to seek a wife. Yeah, but why are you here alone? Jacob, did your dad lose his estate? Oh, no, Isaac is wealthier than ever. Well, then why did he send you away like this? Well, you see, I had a little falling out with my brother, you see. Can't you just hear the story? Can't you just hear Jacob kind of hedging the story? It wasn't really my fault. He knew what he was doing. It wasn't really my fault. That's what Mom told me to do. Can't you just hear it? Listen to Laban's response, verse 14. Laban said to him, yes, you are my flesh and blood. Definitely a chip off the old block, aren't you, Jacob? Well, Jacob stayed with him for a month, just as a visitor, and during that time he helped with the things of the family, and he worked with the sheep, no doubt helping Rachel as much as he could. And after a month, verse 15, Laban said to him, just because you're my relative, should you work here for nothing? Tell me what your wages should be. Now, maybe you're thinking this is Laban being very generous. Boy needs a job. He's been there for a month. He's been helping out with the family things. He's been doing the work. That's how it worked in those days. He hasn't been just sitting around. He's been contributing. And Laban all of a sudden says, hey, let's make sure you get paid. No. You see, he at the moment is just visiting Laban. He's just there as a guest. Laban wants him to stay. Laban has seen the value of having Jacob around, and he wants Jacob to be stuck there contractually. So, Jacob, what's your price? What do I need to pay you to get you to stay with me and not go home, which has been your plan all along, to take my daughter and leave, but not do that? What's your price to get you to stay? Well, Jacob's answer, of course, is very telling. You see, Jacob wanted one of his daughters, but Jacob didn't have a dowry. Remember how when the unnamed servant came to get Rebekah, how he had all those gifts, all that stuff? And remember how we talked that it was almost kind of, if you will, the purchase price for the daughter. Not that the daughter was property to be bought and sold, but that the daughter brought significant economic value to the family. And if the unnamed servant took the daughter out of the home would feel the loss of her value. And so to make up for that, a dowry was provided. A bride price was provided. Jacob doesn't have a bride price to provide. Now, honestly, we don't know how many daughters Laban had. There's two particular ones in this story. Both of them are young and unmarried, and both of them bring a significant value to the family. For Jacob to remove one, it would be a great cost to Laban and to that household. And he doesn't have a bride price to offer. He has nothing. So he has a plan. Verse 16. Now, Laban had two daughters. The older was named Leah, and the younger was named Rachel. Leah had tender eyes. I wonder what your translation says. Does it say Leah had weak eyes? Or maybe Leah was weak in the eyes? This is a euphemism. This does not mean she didn't see very well. She had Coke bottle glasses. That's not what it means. Some have thought, well, that means she's blind. Nope, that's not what it means. This is a Hebrew euphemism, and it doesn't mean that her eyes were weak. It quite literally means that looking at her would make your eyes weak. Leah hurt your eyes Leah was ugly. Oh, poor Leah. Poor Leah. Now, Rachel, on the other hand, was shapely and beautiful. The story would lead us to believe that the two are pretty close in age. Can you imagine being Leah growing up? Leah's name, which she would have received somewhere in the 2 to 3 year old range, if not right away. This could have been her name from naming time, which in Hebrew culture would have been between 3 and 7 days. Boy received his name as 8 days. However, often there was a waiting period just to make sure the child would survive until 2 or 3 before they received a name. They would often get their name formally at weaning. Her name, Leah, means weary or dull. It can even mean stupid. This is Leah's name. All her life, Leah had been told that she was dull and unattractive. I don't know if that's the truth. I just don't know if that's the truth. I mean, if you tell somebody they're stupid, they're going to act stupid. And if you tell someone they're ugly, they're going to live up to it. They're going to live up to it. Leah's story is just heartbreaking to me. She might have been a beautiful girl. I tell you what, spoiler alert, she is the real catch here. Leah, we're going to see her make a mistake. There's no doubt about it. She's human. But quite frankly, Leah is all right. In this whole family, Leah is the one disciple. Leah is all right. And I just have to wonder, as I was reading this story again and again for preparation the last couple weeks, and I mean, I'm like stuck with regret for this family. I just have to wonder if Jacob had stopped and prayed like the unnamed servant and said, Lord, I'm here on this mission because you've sent me on this mission. And Lord, I want to make sure that I find the choice that you have. I really just have to wonder if Leah would have been the choice. And I wonder if maybe Jacob would have gotten some bargain deal because her dad clearly just wants to get rid of her. And I wonder if she would have turned out to be one of the most beautiful people in the Bible. As Jacob and Leah got to know each other in a special way, I just have to wonder. I mean, she is the one who brings Judah, which is the line of the Messiah. I just have to wonder. Could it have been? Oh, the regrets that Jacob had at the end of his life. Poor Leah. Well, Leah, she hurt your eyes to look at her. But Rachel was shapely and beautiful, and Jacob loved Rachel. Jacob loved Rachel. The word is not hesed. Hesed is the word that God uses of himself for us. It's often translated loving kindness or faithful love. The New Testament would choose the word agape. We talk about that a lot, a giving love. A love that gives and gives and gives for no other reason but because it has chosen to give. That is real love. That's true love. That's giving love. This word, ahab, like Ahab, A-H-A-B, ahab. Or if you're saying it right, you're clearing your throat when you say it, ahab, which I'm not very good at because I'm not Hebrew. This word is closer to like the Greek concept of phileo or maybe even eros. This is an attracted kind of love. Now, it can mean a brotherly love. It can mean a brotherly love, but it generally means a love from a more physical sense. Not a loving to give, but a loving to get. It can often be replaced in many situations in the Bible, and we kind of see it here, with the concept of lust. Not love, but he wanted Rachel. He was not prepared to give himself away for her sake necessarily, but he was prepared to do whatever he had to do to get her. You see? That was how he felt. I guess we'll just say he was interested in her. So he answered Laban, or maybe we could say he was infatuated with her. That's a good term. So he answered Laban, I'll work for you 7 years for your younger daughter Rachel. Listen, the 7 years is significant. We're not going to dig into it tonight. If you are a Bible student, you want to dig in a little further. The concept of 7 is a big deal in the Bible. 7 years, 7 days, and 7 weeks. We're going to see in this section, and that is significant. If you want, and you want me to discuss that, let me know, and we'll discuss it on a Sunday morning before church. There's that half an hour period before service from quarter after the hour to quarter till the hour, 10:15 to 10:45, where we question and answer on this stuff. And we can talk about it then if you would like. Not this week. I have something else that I've been asked to discuss that we're going to talk about this week. Okay. So he answered Laban, I'll work for you 7 years for your younger daughter Rachel. Very specific. Laban replied, better that I give her to you than some other man. Stay with me. He agreed to the terms to some extent. Now, better that I give her to you than some other man. Yes, exactly. They, in those days, they want to keep the clan together, the tribe together. They want to keep all of that working together. And so if she can belong to someone that's part of the clan, it grows the clan as a whole. Plus, remember, Jacob, inheritor of great wealth. That's good. That'll be a really good connection. But I want you to notice something here real quick. Does he say yes? I mean, really? Does he really? Listen, we've seen a lot of yeses, a lot of agreements among the lives of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. We've seen a lot of agreements. Do you see an agreement here? Is Laban agreeing to Jacob's terms? Oh, that's a good idea, Jacob. Stay with me, is all he says. So, Jacob worked 7 years for Rachel, but they seemed only like a few days to him because of his love for her. Aw. That's just how infatuated he was with her. Now, listen. Clearly, he had some level of love for her because he is patient. And the Bible tells us that love is patient. Love is patient. There is no record of him trying to take her now. Love is patient. One commentator says, love is patient. Lust is pressure. Love waits. Lust refuses to wait. Love gives. Lust takes. Love says no. Lust says now. And it doesn't matter whether you're training up your kids, whether you're dealing with the person you would like to marry, whether you're here at church. That's the way it works. Love always has the ability to say no and to wait, if that's what's best for the other person, because love is giving. Lust is taking. It says, I can't wait, I won't wait, I refuse to wait. Remember that. Remember that. We're going to learn a couple other lessons very similar to that tonight, so remember that. Well, he worked, he waited, he did the right thing. He worked hard for 7 years. He gave it his best. He did a good job. Verse 21, then Jacob said to Laban, since my time is complete, give me my wife so I can sleep with her. Can you imagine saying that to your father-in-law? We've been engaged all this time. Hand her over. I want to sleep with her. I can't imagine, but that's what he says. So Laban invited all the men of the place and sponsored a feast. This would be a wedding feast. We've talked about those. That evening, Laban took his daughter Leah and gave her to Jacob, and he slept with her. Wait a minute. How would that happen? How would that happen? We'll come back to verse 24. Verse 25, when morning came, there was Leah. Imagine Jacob. He wakes up in the morning, opens the curtains, and, oh, my eyes. It's Leah. I spent the night with Leah. How'd that happen? Why didn't Leah say anything? Okay, listen. First of all, The way that it worked in those days, there was a bridal tent that was put together. This is the bridal chamber. This is where the two of them, this is the honeymoon suite, all right? Now, there wasn't like there were windows and there were no lights. It's completely dark inside the tent, all right? You know the whole thing of the groom doesn't see the bride before? Exactly. She is dressed head to toe. She is completely and totally veiled. This is how now, the bride wears white because she's pure. Okay, the whole head to toe in the veil. She is covered completely. This is a sign of her purity in those days. And so when they're married, which the ceremony is a contract and it's already taken place, when they are married, she's not brought to him and he takes back the veil. No. She's brought into the bridal chamber where she waits for him. He comes in there completely dark. He cannot see her. The thing I find really interesting is for 7 years he's been staring at Rachel's body. Come on, you know he has. Apparently Leah wasn't that ugly because she didn't feel to his hands or smell to his nose anything different. So they consummate the marriage, they become man and wife. In the morning he wakes up and it's the wrong girl. Why didn't Leah say something? I'll tell you why Leah didn't say something. Oh, was she in on it? Was she like, oh, no. I'll tell you what happened. Laban told Leah, this is what we are going to do. If Leah had said no to him, she's out of there. You do not disobey your father. She becomes a slave. The worst kind of slave, quite frankly, because she's a young lady, an unmarried young lady. Now, let's say that Jacob walks in and he's like, oh, my bride. And she says, wait, no, there's been a switch and I'm Leah. If she does that, then her husband, they are married, even though they haven't consummated yet, they are married, her husband has rejected her. Do you know what she becomes then? A prostitute. She has 3 options: slave, prostitute, or just shut her mouth and go along with it. If she shuts her mouth and goes along with it, she becomes Jacob's wife, and if she is Jacob's wife, he is legally and morally obligated to care for her her entire life. I mean, talk about being stuck between a rock and a hard place. She really doesn't have any other positive choice. Can you imagine how she must have felt in the morning? I can't imagine the heartbreak and rejection. I really hurt for Leah. I'm convinced we're going to see her in heaven. I'm going to give her a big hug. She probably by then already knows it's going to be all right, but Anyway, well, the morning came and here's Leah. So he went to Laban. He grabbed him by the shoulders and shook him, at least in the Troy Revised and Expanded Version, and said, what is this you've done to me? Wasn't it for Rachel that I worked for you? Why have you deceived me? Listen to this answer. It's fantastic. Verse 26, Laban answered, it is not the custom in this land to give the younger daughter in marriage before the firstborn. Ooh, burn. Do you hear what he just did to him? In our land, we have rules. We have customs. We follow the rules here. And you see, in our land here, where we live, over here, not where you're from, apparently, Jacob, but here in the civilized country, the firstborn has certain rights, Jacob. And it would be wrong to subvert the firstborn's rights for another. Jacob, here in this country, what can Jacob possibly say? Nothing. Jacob has been deceived by the ultimate deceiver, and his own deception has been used against him. The very thing he did to his brother, Laban refuses to do in this case. Oh, not because Laban is upstanding, but because Laban is a deceiver. Listen to this. It's not the custom in this place to give the younger daughter in marriage before the firstborn. Complete this week of wedding celebration, and we will also give you the younger one in return for working yet another 7 years for me. We're going to find out later, but not tonight, that Laban is realizing that actually we might find out here in just a few minutes, that Laban is realizing that God is blessing Laban because of having Jacob in his household. And he has found, listen, he didn't care about Leah. He's not like, well, it's really important that Leah has a husband, and since she's so ugly, nobody else in this town will marry her. Listen, Laban's a pretty wealthy guy. There's somebody out there who doesn't care. I heard a story one time, a pastor that I know, the very first wedding he did, it was for a friend of his in college. They had been roommates in college for the last few years of college. And the roommate had gone home to his hometown, during summer break and met this girl and fell madly in love and came back and said, I'm going to marry this girl, but she's home with her parents working and I'm here. And they had a long distance relationship and it went on for a couple years. And the guy just was more and more in love and they were just convinced. And he said, hey, I really want to marry this girl. Will you do the wedding? You're the pastor now, you've graduated and whatnot, will you do the wedding? And he said, you go do premarital counseling with your local pastor and sure, I'll come do the wedding. He'd never met the girl. He flew in the day before the wedding and hung out with the guy for a bachelor party. First time he saw the girl he was marrying was at the wedding. And this guy had been gushing for years about how beautiful she was. Oh, she was just the finest. Oh, she was just the most wonderful thing. And these were his words. He stood up at the front and the girl walked in the back and he took one look at her and he said, who's buying the Alpo, is what he said, because he said she was an absolute, Leah. But to this young man who knew her well, she was infinitely beautiful. There is somebody in that town, somebody in that community, who likely felt that Leah was infinitely beautiful, who knew her, who probably would have paid a price. Laban doesn't care about Leah. Jacob's taken good care of him. Well, I should say God's taken good care of Jacob, and it's helping Laban. And Laban has found a way to keep him for an extra 7 years. So that's what he does. So, complete, he says to him in verse 27, complete this week. Remember, listen, if you're going to do the study, it's right there. Complete this week of wedding celebration, and we also will give you this younger one, he's very specific this time, in return for working yet another 7 years for me. Complete the week. It's a week-long wedding. We talked about that every night. They're to be in the bridal chamber together. You do what you have to contractually do, Jacob, and we'll take care of it from there. So Jacob did just that. He finished the week of celebration, and Laban gave him his daughter Rachel as a wife. So the 1 week goes by for Leah, and then immediately Rachel comes into the picture, and he kind of pays her off, as it were, over 7 years of working there. And Laban gave his slave Bilhah to his daughter Rachel as her slave. And if you go back to verse, 24, Laban gave his slave Zilpah to his daughter Leah as her slave. This was a really common practice. These were girls that were probably a little bit younger than than Rachel and Leah. So I don't know their exact ages, but let's just say Rachel and Leah, let's just say they're 20. The slave girls would have been, say, 15 at this point, and they would have been provided as like handmaidens. A wealthier household would always do that. That was just custom. So these girls now belong to Rachel and Leah, is how that works. And of course, they're going to grow up in that household, and we're going to see them again when they're older. Verse 31. Oh, we didn't get that far. Jacob did just that. He gave the slaves. Verse 30, Jacob slept with Rachel also, and indeed, he loved Rachel more than Leah. And he worked for Laban another 7 years. So initially, we're told, there is some sort of desire for Leah. It's that same word, ahab. He had some ahab for Leah, but he had a lot more ahab for Rachel. Now that's significant because in verse 31 we see, the Lord saw that Leah was unloved. It got to the point where there was no ahab for Leah. Boy, we just don't have time to really dig into that. Jesus tells us no one can serve two masters. And he is right. Jesus tells us he will hate one and love the other. He'll be devoted to one, but he'll despise the other. And that's just the truth. And in my own life, I have seen way too often where a lady will go to work and she will work alongside a man, And both the lady and the man are married. And they're devoted to their spouse at home. But the two of them working together will begin to share together. They'll complain about work. That's where it always starts, Horrible boss or whatever. Bad customers, I don't know. And they form a connection there. A type of connection that neither one of them has with their spouse at home. Because their spouse doesn't experience the same things they do at work. And it gets to the point where instead of going home and talking to their spouse and venting to their spouse, boy, you should have seen this customer. Boy, my boss is a jerk. They don't do that anymore. They don't talk about work at home anymore. They just talk about it with the person at work. And then over time, they start sharing more and more things. Just giving more and more to that person at work. Things that they're not giving to the person at home. And I don't think they even do it consciously. But over time, they start investing more in the person that they work with than they do at the person at home. And it's not too long before they become devoted to the one and despise the other. They go from complaining about work at home to complaining about work at work, to sharing about work, to sharing about life, to complaining about their spouses. And there doesn't even have to be any kind of physical relationship. They're investing in a bond together and taking from the bond at home. And it doesn't work. It doesn't work. It never works. And I've seen that exact same circumstance happen in a lot of different situations where people invest in someone or often even something that brings them a level of satisfaction emotionally that they are no longer gathering from home. There was actually a story in the news not too long ago about a man, an adult man, who was married and had children, who began to talk to an AI girlfriend. And it destroyed his family because he was investing in this artificial relationship in ways that he would no longer invest in his genuine relationship. Because AI always told him the right thing. And his wife, she always rejected him or whatever. It is a very dangerous thing, and it's just really well played out here. I talked to you about polygamy. Was it last time we were together or the time before that? It's never presented as a good thing in the Bible. It's presented in the Bible because it really happened. And the Bible doesn't mince words. But it's not presented as an alternative. It is always a negative. And we see it here in a big way. Leah is a sweet girl, a wonderful girl, and she is a God follower. Honestly, spoiler alert, Rachel is a brat and a pig. Leah is a sweetheart. She is worth investing in. Part of me wishes that Laban would have made him wait 7 years more for Rachel, because I think he would have discovered how cool of a person Leah really was. And maybe he would have said, let somebody else have Rachel. She's a brat. But instead, the whole thing falls apart. And it becomes more and more dysfunctional. Well, anyway, when the Lord saw that Leah was unloved, he opened her womb, but Rachel wasn't able to conceive. That's kind of cool. If her husband's not going to take care of her, I will. Way to go. Thank you, Lord. Now notice that that's the personal name. That's Yahweh. That's not just God. He personally took an interest in her. You're going to find out here pretty soon, well, actually in this next verse, Leah conceived, gave birth to a son, and named him Reuben, for she said, the Lord has seen my affliction. Surely my husband will love me now. Reuben, it sounds like the Hebrew for he has seen my affliction. The Lord has seen my affliction. In other words, I have been calling on the name of Yahweh God for help. And Yahweh God has helped me. That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. That's the kind of girl you want right there. Who cares if she's a little hard on the eyes? I have a feeling that might have taken care of itself in time. He's got a girl that's going to call on Yahweh God for help. She's pretty cool. But she breaks my heart. Surely my husband will love me now. Do you think that's going to happen? She conceived again and gave birth to another son and said, the Lord has heard that I am unloved. He still doesn't love me. And so he has given me this son also, and she named him Simeon. I can't remember what Simeon means. I've got it in here. Hold on. Simeon has heard. He has heard. The Lord has heard. Yahweh is listening to me. The Lord has heard that I am unloved. He's been listening to me when I cry out to him. Isn't that cool? Now, she said, the Lord will see my affliction. Surely my husband will love me now. And it didn't work. By the time we get to verse 33, this is at least a year later, he still doesn't love her. Well, verse 34, she conceived again and gave birth to another son and said, at last my husband will become attached to me, because I have borne 3 sons for him and named him Levi, which means attached. First, she just wants to be loved. Then she's just willing to not be unloved. And now she's willing to settle for just an attachment here. Is it working? No, it's not. Listen, girls, don't fall for it. Oh, if I just give him what he wants, he'll love me. No, he won't. He will despise you more. Oh, if I just do what he's asking for, he'll love me. No, he won't. And guys, don't you fall for it either. Oh my gosh, I worked with this guy. He had jet black hair, super cool kid. He had jet black hair. During the second week of October, he came to work with completely orange hair. We called him Pumpkinhead, because we thought he was trying to do the Halloween thing, right? He gonna look like Pumpkin. He laughed and he went along with it. Pumpkinhead. We called him Pumpkinhead. He was a really good-natured guy and all this kind of stuff like that. You know why he had bright orange hair? Because a girl told him he'd look cute if it was blonde. And so he bleached his jet black hair, and it came out bright orange. Do you think that girl then went out with him? She laughed at him and called him Pumpkinhead. Don't do it. You don't change for her. You don't change for her. You don't change the way you look or act or dress. You can change the way you smell. It's okay. That one's probably all right. But you particularly don't change your morals or your beliefs. How many young men have I seen lured away by a girl that said, well, I'm not into that stuff. Come with me. We'll have a good time. Smoke this, drink that, whatever. Don't do it. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. Leah, you be Leah. We're going to find out in another chapter that he has tremendous value for her. Okay, Wendy told me I got to hurry. Verse 35, she conceived again and gave birth to a son. Oh, I love Leah. She conceived again and gave birth to a son. She named him Judah, or Judah, which means praise. And she says, this time, I will praise the Lord. It's not going to work. I'm not going to get anything from my husband, but you know what? I don't even care. Yahweh has taken such good care of me. That's the relationship I need to focus on, the relationship with Yahweh. If my husband wants to be a jerk, let him be a jerk. I worship Yahweh God. Oh, isn't she great? Isn't she great? Well, listen, we're going to rip through the rest of this real quick because we got to get through it, and we'll go over about 5 minutes. Well, when Rachel saw that she wasn't bearing Jacob any children, she envied her sister. Can you imagine? I'll bet these two had been competitive all their lives. She'd always been the winner because she's so fine. And now she's getting stomped on by her sister. Actually, I shouldn't feel good about that. Anyway, she gets envious of her sister and she grabs him by his shirt collars and she shakes him and she says, give me sons or I will die. Will she die? No. Matter of fact, she does die, giving birth to a son. Anyway, give me sons or I will die. And Jacob's answer is almost right. Jacob became angry with Rachel. He's starting to not like her so much. And he said, am I in God's place who has withheld offspring from you? Man, there's an interesting concept, an interesting teaching in this lesson that we're not really going to get to this time. Maybe we'll pick it up on a Sunday morning about where babies come from. And I don't mean the physical act. God is the giver and withholder of children. Never is there an opportunity in Scripture where a child, happens. Never there is a situation of rape or incest or some kind of struggle where God doesn't value that child. Never is there a child who is alone and has no parents that God doesn't watch for and value. There is an amazing teaching in here about God providing the children, and it flies in the face of everything our culture believes about kids these days. The tremendous value of kids and why we should be protecting them and not trying to engineer them ourselves, but receiving what God has given and not saying, well, I don't want this one, it's not good enough, and ending it before it even comes. There is tremendous value in children. That's another thing you might have to look for on your own, because Wendy's going to shut off my mic pretty soon. Verse 3, then she said, here is my maid Bilhah. Go sleep with her. She'll bear children for me so that through her I too can build a family. We've talked about this before. This was a common practice. It wasn't a godly practice. It wasn't a godly accepted practice. And it wasn't a practice that was supposed to be performed by God's people. But it was a practice that was common in the culture. The slave belongs to Rachel. So any children the slave has belong to Rachel, you see. So Rachel gave her slave Bilhah to Jacob as his wife, and he slept with her. How could he do that? Easy. It was Rachel's night. He goes to Rachel's tent. There's Bilhah. He's not much of a man. He says, okay. And there we go. Now, this is the funny thing. So he slept with her, and Bilhah conceived and bore Jacob a son. And Rachel says, God has vindicated me. He has heard me and given me a son. She named him Dan, which it means vindicated or judged. What is the matter with this girl? It gets better. It gets better. Rachel's slave Bilhah conceived again. It worked so well, she did it another time. And bore Jacob a second son. And listen to what Rachel said. In my wrestlings with God, I have wrestled with my sister and won. God, why aren't you giving me children? Ha ha, I defeated you, God. I beat you. I found a plan that went around what God was trying to do. I wrestled with God, and I have beaten my sister. How is that? Her sister has 4 children of her own. Rachel's slave has 2, and she's like, I won. The girl should have done upward sports years ago, is all I'm saying. So she named him Dan. Or, pardon me, she named him Naphtali, which is, Naphtali. Wrestlings. Wrestlings is Naphtali. So she named her Naphtali. Named him Naphtali. I lost the names of the kids in here somewhere. There we go. Yeah, wrestlings. Naphtali is wrestlings. Okay. Well, Leah, love Leah, she's about to make a mistake. It's okay. She's human. When Leah saw that she had stopped having children, she took her slave Zilpah and did the same thing. It worked for Rachel. Maybe it'll work for me. And Leah's slave Zilpah bore Jacob a son, and Leah said, what good fortune, and she named him Gad. Now notice that up until this point, she's naming her children a name that has something to do with what God has done for her. She does not in this case. What good fortune. Look what fortune has done for her, and named him Gad. Gad, which is good fortune. Leah's slave Zilpah bore Jacob a second son. It worked so well one time, let's do it again. And she didn't say, God has blessed me. She didn't say, I'm full of joy from the Lord. She said, the circumstance has made me happy. And she named him Asher, which is happy. I really want to finish this. Reuben went out during the wheat harvest and found some mandrakes in the field. Mandrakes were a very, like a low-lying bush, and they had deep roots that were thick like a carrot and white flowers, and the flowers would become a little fruit that looked like a small red apple, and they were referred to as love apples. The fruit was thought to be an aphrodisiac, and the root, cooked and ate, was thought to be like a fertility drug. And whether or not this really worked or not, it at least worked half the time, so people bought into this. They were rare and very highly valued, as you can imagine. So Reuben went out during the wheat harvest. We don't know how old he is at this time. I would think that he is a young man at this point. And he found some mandrakes in the field, and when he brought them to his mother Leah, Rachel asked, please give me some of your son's mandrakes. Hey, I haven't had any kids ever. You've got like all of these kids. Give me some mandrakes. I want the fertility drug. I want to be able to have kids. But Leah replied to her, isn't it enough that you have taken my husband? Now you also want to take my son's mandrakes? I can totally hear that from two sisters. Well then, Rachel said, I'll make you a deal. It's supposed to be my night tonight, but you can have him. He can sleep with you tonight in exchange for your son's mandrakes. Thinking without the mandrakes, she's never going to get pregnant. She hadn't had any kids in a long time. So safe bet. When Jacob came in from the field that evening, Leah went out to meet him and said, you must come with me, for I have hired you with my son's mandrakes. This guy's got to be getting tired of this. So Jacob slept with her that night. God listened to Leah. She called out to him again. Isn't that cool? She called out to him. She didn't do the mandrakes. She went straight to God. That's awesome. She called out to him, and she conceived and bore Jacob a fifth son. Leah said, God has rewarded me, oh no, Leah, for giving my slave to my husband. Oh. How about God has rewarded me for calling on his name, for not settling for the things that the world thinks are cool and instead trusting with him. That I would like. She has gotten confused. And she named him Issachar, reward, Issachar. Then Leah conceived again and bore Jacob a sixth son. God has given me a good gift, Leah said. This time my husband will honor me. She's not even looking for attachment anymore. She just wants to be honored. Do you remember in 1 Samuel, Elkanah had two wives, Hannah and Peninnah. Remember that? And Peninnah had children, and Hannah did not. But Hannah was the honored one, remember? Because they would come to dinner at the sacrifice, and she would get a double portion. It's just a sign, not trying to make her fat. It's just a sign of honor. Leah said, I'm his first wife. I've given him 6 sons. I would simply just like to be honored for that. I think that's fair, quite frankly. And so she named him Zebulun, honor. Verse 21, later Leah bore a daughter and named her Dinah. We don't know how many daughters are involved. There probably was more than one daughter. There were probably a lot of daughters. The only one that matters to our story, unfortunately, is this young lady named Dinah, who apparently was always in the kitchen. Thank you. Then God remembered Rachel. He listened to her. She finally called out to him and opened her womb. She conceived and bore a son, and she said, God has taken away my disgrace. Boy, I wish it stopped right there, but she keeps going. She named him Joseph. Do you know what Joseph means? It means, may Yahweh add another. Give me sons or I will die. She has one. Oh, thank you, Lord, I finally have one. Listen, I really need more. One is not enough. She had been counting on the having of a son to be her value, to make her worthwhile. Leah was worthwhile because she had 6 of them. He could sing My 3 Sons twice every day. But for her, her value was completely wrapped up in having this child. If I could just have one boy. Now that I have one, it's not enough. That's not enough value. I need 2. And that is the story of someone who does not trust in Christ. My value is in my job or my bank account or my boat or my really sweet Royal Enfield motorcycle. And I got one. Do you know how many motorcycles is the right amount of motorcycles? 1 more than you have now. And that can be said for anything that someone's heart yearns after, to give them value. And we're going to see how that story ends for Rachel, and it is heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking. Anyway, we're going to pick it up from there. The beginning of a very dysfunctional family. There is so much more to study in that section. We can look at some specifics if you would like. Feel free to keep digging into it. We will see how this turns out. There is one really interesting thing coming. We talked about this a few weeks back. God's going to use this mess. He is a functional God. This might be a dysfunctional family, but he is a functional God. And God's going to use this mess to do great things for him. Let's stop and pray. Lord, how we thank you that you have not left us to our own devices to clean up our own messes. We make the problems. We turn the wrong direction, and you give us the chance to repent and turn around, and better yet, to just turn over and give you the wheel. We pray, O Lord, that you would lead and that we would follow. We thank you, Lord.